They know they do not need a temple to feel God. They sense Him in nature, in a coffee with a loved one, in the quiet of a room, or in the gaze of a stranger who crosses the path. They live with the Spirit, and that makes them sensitive to what is true. The chosen are those who understood that spirituality does not need a stage, that anointing does not depend on a microphone, that true worship is not measured by the volume of sound, but by the purity of the heart. They live this every day, even if in silence. And wherever they go, they leave marks of living and sincere faith. They know that God does not dwell in temples of stone, but in temples of flesh. They have learned to hear the voice of God without the need for intermediaries. And because of that, they no longer depend on a religious structure to stay firm. They are rooted in presence, connected to the source, moved by truth. This is the seventh truth that many still fear to face. The church is alive, and it is not confined to walls. It moves with the chosen. It breathes with every gesture of love. It grows in houses, on streets, on the networks, in cafes, in walks. Where there is truth, there is church. Where there are two or three, there is presence. What is happening now is not the end of the church. It is its rebirth. And you are part of it.
Just keep it right here between me and you. I've been tempted, I'll admit it. Some folks like to rub your face in it. Hey, have some fun, she'll never know. One for the money, two for the show. I can only handle one night or less. Living without lies. One night or more or less. No fuss, no fuss, no mess. Some folks think about nothing but baloney, putting on airs, happy being phony. Every truth lived by stock in the future. Every heart you break needs 50 feet of suture. I watch a lot of people climbing over that fence. Soon their hands were shaking and their faces looked tense as they straddled two pickets labeled guilt and fun. Now they're living in denial about what they done. I can only handle one night or less. Living without life's worst to best. One night or more or less. No muss, no fuss, no mess.
many live in silence, feeling a void within the churches, but afraid to admit it. Others have left the temples long ago, but still carry guilt. And there are also those who never felt fit in, even trying. If you identified with this, perhaps you are one of the chosen. Not because you are better, but because you were called to something different. In this content, we will talk about something that many avoid: the truth about the chosen who do not go to church. We will show that the Bible does indeed have something to say about this, and that far from being a mistake, this path can be a necessary stage for those who are at a deeper level of connection with God. What we will talk about today is not to attack churches, but to welcome those who love God, have faith, want to live the gospel, but do not feel represented or spiritually fed within the current religious structures. You will understand that leaving the church is not leaving the faith, that true worshipers are sought by the Father, not by attendance at a temple, but by the purity of spirit, and that sometimes those who are outside are closer to God's heart than those who follow all the rituals. It is time to speak the truth, with respect, with depth, and based on the Word. I am George. Now, I ask you to follow the channel, enable notifications, and share with your friends. The word chosen does not refer to a superior group. In the Bible, this term represents those who heard God's call and decided to follow it, even when that requires breaking with traditions and expectations. They are people who do not conform to the superficial and who feel deep within that there is something greater awaiting them. The chosen are those who cannot simply adapt. The religious routine, repetitive sermons, and rigid structures cannot feed the thirst they have for depth. They sense when faith is lived by appearance. They perceive when the presence of God is replaced by performance. And they cannot pretend that everything is fine. Many judge the chosen for their restlessness. They say they are complicated, rebellious, or difficult to please. But in truth, this restlessness is a sign that they are still alive inside. They did not settle. They did not accept a faith that numbs. They want presence, truth, relationship. They want God, not a system over God. Jesus made it clear in Matthew 22:14 that many are called, but few are chosen. This shows that everyone has access to the call, but not everyone is willing to walk the path of authenticity. The path of truth is narrow, and it requires courage to step away from the ordinary. The chosen are willing to pay that price. That is why many of them end up distancing themselves from churches, not because they have lost faith, but because they want something more real, more alive, less controlled. They can't bear the weight of religion without essence. They would rather walk with God in the desert than stay in an empty spiritual palace. And yes, often this leaves them alone. That loneliness, however, serves something greater. It strengthens them. It teaches them to hear the voice of God without intermediaries. It teaches them to trust without needing an audience. It teaches them to walk by faith, even without support. It is in these moments that the chosen are forged. And when the time comes, they return to the world, carrying true light. The truth that many avoid facing is this: the chosen do not always fit within the known formats. And that is not a mistake. It is a sign that God is calling these souls to something different. When you feel you do not belong, it may be that God is saying, you were made for something beyond. One of the greatest spiritual liberations is realizing that God is not limited by walls. He does not require a physical temple to manifest himself. This truth is in the scriptures. In Acts 17:24, Paul declares that the God creator of the universe does not dwell in temples made by human hands. This breaks paradigms. Nevertheless, many people believe that they are with God only when they are in a worship service, listening to a preacher, or participating in religious programming. This creates a spiritual prison, where God's presence is conditioned on events and places, and those who do not attend feel distant, in sin, or incomplete. But Jesus offered a key to break this. In John 4:23-24, he tells the Samaritan woman that the Father seeks worshipers in spirit and truth. He did not mention temples, nor traditions. He spoke of the heart, of authenticity, of a true connection with the divine, without the need for mandatory rituals. The chosen understand this naturally. Even if they do not know the verses by heart, they feel that God is with them anywhere. They feel the presence in the stillness of the pre-dawn, in an outdoor walk, in solitary prayer, in sincere tears. They learn that holiness is not in a place, but in the state of the heart. When this awareness awakens, everything changes. Religious guilt begins to disappear. The fear of being outside the spiritual covering dissolves. And in its place, a new intimacy with God is born, lighter, more sincere, more alive. The chosen realize that God's presence is where there is truth, not where there is a crowd. Unfortunately, many who are still stuck in the system criticize those who live this freedom. They call them wayward or rebels. But the truth is that many of these free ones are more aligned with God's heart than many who attend the temple regularly, but without inner transformation. It is not the church that defines who you are. It is not the position, the liturgy, or the ritual. It is your spirit. It is your surrender. It is your truth with God. This is the faith the Father seeks. And when He finds it, He manifests Himself, wherever you are, in the temple, on the street, or in your room. Many have an image of Jesus molded only by sweetness, by peace, and by compassion. And yes, He was all of that. But He was also someone who faced, with firmness, the religious systems of His time. He did not bow His head before hypocrisy, nor did He accept manipulation of faith. He spoke out, with courage, about what many feared to question. Jesus did what was not allowed. He healed on the Sabbath, spoke with women in public, drew near to the outcasts, ate with sinners. He did not follow religious protocols. And this was not out of gratuitous rebellion, but because the truth was greater than tradition. He came to restore the essence that religion had lost over time. The Pharisees, religious leaders of the time, were deeply bothered by Him. Because Jesus did not merely preach love, He lived that love outside the system. He did not belong to the rules. He did not seek approval. He was free. And this freedom revealed the spiritual prison in which many were confined. In Matthew 23, Jesus directly confronts the religious, calling them whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but rotten on the inside. This shows that not everything that seems spiritual truly is. The fact that something bears the name church does not automatically mean it carries the presence of God. Discernment is needed to perceive the difference. Many people today are trapped in a faith based on rituals and appearances, keeping schedules, following customs, repeating speeches. But the chosen feel when this becomes empty. They perceive when the altar has become a stage, when the Bible has become a script for show, when faith has become marketing or politics. And this sensitivity unsettles them. Just like Jesus, the chosen cannot stay silent about this. They retreat, not for lack of faith, but for excess of consciousness. They withdraw, not for deviation, but because they can no longer bear participating in something that has lost its essence. And as happened with Christ, many are judged for this stance. Some are labeled cold, critical, troublesome. But in truth, they are only being faithful to what they feel, and they stand firm, even alone, even in silence, even without labels, because they know that true faith does not need a stage. It needs truth. And this truth, when lived, speaks for itself. The third truth, which many avoid facing, is this: stepping away from the church does not mean abandoning God. In many cases, it means following in the footsteps of Jesus, who was also rejected by the religious system, and who, even outside it, continued to be the greatest example of connection with the Father. Little is spoken about the silent process that many chosen live. It's not just about being outside the church. It's about being in a place of separation, retreat, and silence. And that place often is necessary for the soul to hear clearly what God is saying. The true calling begins within, and it doesn't always have a crowd. Several biblical characters went through this. Elijah was fed by ravens in the desert. Moses lived 40 years removed, in anonymity. John the Baptist inhabited the desert, eating locusts and honey, far from religious centers. All were used powerfully, but first they were separated. And in that separation, they experienced deep encounters with God. The call of the chosen almost always passes through loneliness, not as punishment, but as preparation. In the noise of the world, it is difficult to hear God's voice. And often, even within churches, the noise of opinions, doctrines, and vanities hinders this true listening. Therefore, God takes his people to the desert. There, everything becomes clearer. This isolation hurts. It hurts because it seems like rejection. It seems like failure. But in time, the person understands that they are being refined. It is in the hiding place of the Most High that character is shaped. There, pride is treated, vision is purified, and the heart is realigned.
Peter, you know this one already. In a plastic cage, a perpendicular geometric face hovers overhead with one eye on a stalk. That would be an E major, by the way.